What's up, guys? We played another game above 2000 against Techo 58 from Jamaica. He had 77% accuracy. I had 89.9% accuracy, which is really good because this was an opening I've never played before, but I want to play. And so that's the Pirc defense. Um, so let's take a look at it. He went e4. I started with d6. He went d4, controlling the center. I developed with knight f6. This is the Pirc defense against e4. And basically you always just have to be ready for if he pushes e5. In this case it doesn't work because if takes, you take his queen. Knight g4 hits this pawn and this pawn. So he develops his bishop to d3, defending the pawn that I was attacking. And then to continue with the Pirc, you have to play g6. Otherwise it's not the same opening. With the idea of bishop g7 and castles. It's the same moves as the King's Indian, basically. More or less. So h3, and this is because if he develops his knight, he doesn't want me pinning it and finding a good square for this bishop, because now it's going to be a little awkward to find a good place for it. So I continue with bishop g7, makes sense. It's where the bishop belongs. He plays c3, which isn't the most aggressive approach, so he defends this pawn, kind of tries to shut out my bishop a little bit. I just castle since he's not putting any pressure with this move. Now he develops his knight, knowing that I can't pin it. But he also didn't play any moves that stop me from playing e5. And e5 is a good move. It's the move you're trying to get in, so I figured now I could play it safely. If he wants to push past it, that's fine with me. I'll just develop my knight and prepare f5. I could also play c6 maybe. And if he takes it, I know that I can recapture with my pawn. And if he takes with his knight, I can then take his pawn, opening up an attack on his knight that's hanging. And the tactics make this all work for me. So I know that playing e5, I don't need to prepare it any further with a move like knight d7 or rook e8, because it's ready to go now. And his bishop being here blocks him from queen trading, so that's another reason you sometimes wait with it, because you don't want him to trade queens. Well, now he has a piece in front, so it doesn't open up the line. He castles, just obvious moves. I put a rook on the file, subtly preparing to take. And when he recaptures, take this pawn, since it's the second attacker. He defends against it by pinning the knight, so indirect defense. I didn't mind this move. I kick it, or I ask it what it wants to do immediately. He takes. I took with the bishop. I kind of knew I should. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine, but I kind of felt like I should have taken with the queen. But for some reason, I took with the bishop anyway. I know the bishop should just go back. And so at least if you have to move the queen at some point, you have options, whereas the bishop will always go back to where it started from. I don't know. I knew it would feel weird, but I did it anyway. And it did feel weird. He develops his other knight. Now I take. There's no reason to take immediately. But at the very least, after he recaptures, he doesn't have his knight coming here. You could definitely just develop your knight here normally, and then bring your bishop back and bring your knight here. But I took maybe one move like prematurely. He recaptured. There's nothing wrong with it though. It just never hurts to be a little bit more developed. So now the knight comes out. You could also develop it here, but I thought at least here it doesn't give him the option to trade. It keeps more pieces on the board. And since he's ranked a lowly 1900, I figured more options for him to make mistakes. So he figured I'm coming to one of the dark squares, and he can't stop both at the same time, so he might as well prematurely move the bishop. I don't know if that makes sense, but he did it. And I still should probably retreat the bishop and put the knight here where it belongs. But for some reason I was hesitant to move this piece again. And I stuck my knight here. But the thing is, this doesn't do anything. My idea was, if he ever kicks it, it's always heading to e6 to trade anyway. Like, that was the plan. I couldn't find a good square for it, even though this is a good square. And this is always just going to get hit, maybe, or traded or something. So my idea was this, and then whenever I felt like it, I could chuck it into e6. And if he trades, I bring out my bishop, and my position's looking nice. So I went here. It's not a big deal. It's extremely hard for him to take advantage of this, practically. He goes rook e1, just defending his pawn. And the idea with white is always to prepare e5 push, like with f4 and pieces. This guy never didn't get the memo though. This is my first game playing with it though, so I don't actually know the ideas. I know some ideas from watching other people play. Bishop d7. I guess it develops the bishop, but I don't know. It feels okay, I guess. I did it because it looks at both diagonals. It controls the knight. It controls the bishop a little. It gives my knight another coordination square. Yeah, and it develops the bishop, and if I want, I can always put it here. So yeah, I don't hate it. Definitely don't hate it. Knight f3, developing his other knight. And these positions are very tricky. I mean, it looks tricky to me. Very confusing. So many different options and lines and intermezzo moves. It's very hard to figure out for a first game. You know, not just looking at it for the first time with no experience in the position. a5. It's just a typical move to play when your knight's on c5 in a lot of structures. Yeah, when in doubt, random rook pawn move always works. Queen d2, connecting his rooks and eyeing this pawn. Like a normal person, I should once again retreat my bishop and have the really nice and solid structure. I can put my king to on h7 if I ever want, but I couldn't help myself. And even though he has all of his pieces on the board, I went king g7. It doesn't lose or anything, but it's just so like it puts itself on knight check squares. It leaves the bishop blocking the queen. It keeps the bishop in a pushable square. Like, it's still fine, but the extra support it gives to this one square g6 is definitely not worth it, and you should probably go here. You can always have your queen look at this diagonal, but it's still fine. It's just more ballsy. It's hard to figure out what to do here, especially since I didn't go with this plan and give my queen an avenue. But I decided on the plan of c6, b5. I just wanted to make some space for my pieces, even if it costs me a pawn. Of course, I didn't like that this pawn would be weak, but I thought it might be interesting to open up lines for my bishop, my queen, and my rook. Because I don't want to just sit back. Like if you try to think of moves that aren't just really dumb, it's hard to find some. c6 seems reasonable. Even if your plan isn't b5, it's whatever. Knight e6 looks like a move. What are the moves? Rook e7, queen e7, rook c8. Yeah, these are just insane. Like it's way too deep of understanding. But you got to go with the logical plan, and that's c6, b5 for me, for my small brain. Rook d1, obviously putting pressure to win the pawn. Funnily enough, the evaluation still says even though a lot of people probably think white's a lot better here because he's about to win a pawn, and black's not really doing, like, threatening anything. So I play b5. Again, just trying to do something on these three files. He takes, I recapture, and now this pawn and this pawn are both kind of targets, but it changed the structure. It gave me more options. I don't know, a little more active. So he retreats, hitting my knight, which if I let him take my knight, and then I hang a bishop, so that's not good. And otherwise, he's just threatening to win the pawn straight up with the double stack. So I have to do something about it. And there's only a few moves that don't just lose the game. I played one of them. So I moved my bishop, which was a target, to e6, which double hits the knight in return. So if I go here, which I did, and he takes this pawn, I take the queen. He takes my queen, and then I could win a piece. So that works out for me. So the pawn's not hanging, technically, defended by tactics. If he takes the knight, I take his knight, and then I'm adequately defended on the d file, and my d pawn is no longer weak. It's connected with these guys, and that's awesome. So can't do that. So what does he do? He instead throws his knight into d4, hitting this pawn and this bishop. I said, I don't really care. I'm gonna kick your knight. It says mistake, even though it's only 0.4. But it's very hard to take advantage of. Like, this is an engine can take advantage of it, but this guy definitely won't. Basically, whatever he takes, I can take back in like a favorable way for me. So he does take, because you can't take the pawn because this knight's hanging. If you take this, you kind of solve all my problems, and if you move it, that looks dumb. So he takes my bishop, and now we're all both low on time. He only has a minute, and I have 3 minutes, so it's gonna be a lot of weird moves, bad moves. Now I could take it either way, but I got excited to take with the rook just for activity's sake and defensive sake. Like, oh, you could save the pawn, but I didn't even. That's why I did it, is because I took with the rook to defend the pawn, knowing that if he jumps his knight in to kick the rook, I could just take it and defend my own pawn. So that's what I did. Knight takes was better because that discourages his knight from coming here. but it still has to move somewhere, so it's awkward for him. Now he comes here, and I do take it, and he does take it, which is what I calculated. And then I calculated, um, see, this says 0.9, but if you look at the engine, it says it's even. I don't know why it has the discrepancy always, but yeah, I calculated it was fine. Engine just, it's lying right now. 97. So now he can't push. Either push looks really bad. I don't know why I just did that. What was I saying? Oh yeah, so now I'm adequately defended and I feel fine. So he goes in here and attacks my one weakness and lines up with my queen. Maybe queen b6 is the move. What did I play? Okay, well, see? At least I'm consistent. Oh, they want queen a5. Well, yeah, if he doesn't want the queen trade, he has to go here, which lets me push. Yeah, queen a5 was better. But that's okay. No big deal. Then he plays e5, which I don't understand because the square is defended. So I can win a pawn. So I just take the pawn. And he takes back, and then I take back. Oh yeah, this was his idea. He saw that he was going to lose the pawn, but in the process, he was going to line up this thing. He's going to go queen c3 and win my knight. And he thinks I'm going to fall for it. And I did, because I took the pawn. So now he goes here. And I have a good move that he has 20 seconds and I have 40 seconds. So I'm not going to find the absolute best move. I think b4 works because in order to keep the pin, he has to give up the queen. So then that releases the pressure and I can move my knight. I didn't do that. Instead, I got out of the pin this way, which still works. Because if he takes the knight with the queen, I get, it's a queen for a rook and a knight. And if he doesn't do that, and he takes my queen, I recapture and my rook's defended. So he has to take me. So that's why I did it, to force the queen trade and be up one pawn in an endgame. So he takes me, creating this little extra pawn island. Now I'm up a pawn over here, but he has a bishop, but he has 19 seconds, and I have 50 seconds. So he goes here, double hitting. The only move that gives him any chances to stay in this game. Otherwise, if he gave me time to go king f6, defending my weaknesses, and getting a rook behind, I would just slowly grind. It would take some work, but not that much. So you can go here and counter because you need time to defend this pawn. Instead, I set up this trick, which he obviously can't take because I think I can go here. Oh wait, what did I have planned for him? I think he was gonna go here, here, and it wasn't even to win the bishop. It was just to get my rook active, I think. He didn't take though. He moved the bishop. Yeah. What did I have planned? I definitely had something planned. It was definitely knight d4. King something. I mean, yeah, rook something here. That's what it was. That's right. That's right. Okay, so I did that. He didn't fall for it. Instead, he moved his bishop. And now I want to defend this pawn. But if you go here, you hang the knight. So I figured, what's the only other square? And it's the best move, even though it looks funny. This move was bad because my king would love to be on f6. That's like the most comfortable home. So cozy, so nice. And it protects these weaknesses. Nice at home. Look at that. f4. No idea what this does. Now that my pawn's defended, I want to get my knight not on d8. Now he goes for a weakness with 15 seconds, but he walks right into a fork. And I could win the rest with my eyes closed. There's just nothing for him to do. I'm setting up a mating net with pawn on h4, knight here, and rook here. So that's the point of all of this. This is to watch the pawn, and now this is my idea. I don't care about this. He walks out of that mating net. So I say, okay, I'll just go here. Nice and safe. We'll trade the pawns here, and I'll win with my extra knight. So now I'm still just harassing him because I have two pieces and he does not. And now, checkmate in another beautiful... I love finding these mating nets and mating constructions. And you just play these opponents. And you end up like making them work in the middle of a game against a high-rated opponent. It's pretty satisfying. So that was a pretty good game. I'm happy with that. Kind of tough to know what to do sometimes. But I just have to play the position and keep analyzing and getting some ideas. Even here. These moves are so weird. So weird to me. The only thing that really makes sense to me is the king h7, bishop back, and then figure out what to do. If I go here, where does this knight go? c6 here, but what's the plan there? Yeah, it's hard to know what the plan is. I gotta look that up. Gotta look that up. Can't be clueless in the middle game. Alright, we got another win. Moving on up to 2100. Rapid.